So we are live.
So ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, welcome to this webinar, the second workshop, where we are going to reflect on Fratelli Tutti in relation to human solidarity. Building bridges for human solidarity in the light of Pope Francis' encyclical letter Fratelli Tutti helps us to bring the international community together to reflect on this common agenda of working as a community of faith and believers and as scholars for the common cause of humanity. So Tangaza University, Ummah University, Harmony Institute, and our global partners from the USA, Europe, Africa, and Asia have organized this international conference on interfaith and interreligious dialogue with a specific focus on Fratelli Tutti. This conference started yesterday, and we are reflecting on the letter written by Pope Francis, Fratelli Tutti. When Pope Francis met with Ahmad al-Tayyib, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhari, and signed a historic declaration of Muslim, Christian, and human fraternity, it was a clear indicator that building bridges for human solidarity was possible. Both then agreed the world would either build a future together or there will be no future. And they added, the time has come for all people to actively exert themselves with courage, audacity, and without pretense to help the human family deepen the capacity and peaceful coexistence, cultivate the vision of hope, and build concrete paths of peace and human solidarity. So today, joined and inspired by those words, we also relate them to SDG number 17 that talks about a multi-stakeholder partnership to mobilize and share knowledge, consult expertise, use technology, financial resources for the betterment of human sustainability. In this spirit, this webinar is going to look at how we can create these international partnerships that build on this solidarity to achieve the common goal. Two areas that have really inspired us to reflect on the common human solidarity is the migration and refugees across the continent that fall prey to traffickers and the recent issues concerning the coronavirus pandemic. So to help us reflect on how humanity can reflect together and join hands in the solidarity and in the spirit of Fratelli Tutti is Professor Bobakri from Tunisia, who is going to share with us his own experience. A bit of his biodata is as follows. Professor Dr. Hassan is a senior lecturer of Geography and Migration Studies. He has a degree in giving access to and supervise students, especially students from the University of Sousse in the area of arts and humanities. And this is located in Tunisia. He's a member of the NAMAN, that is North Africa Migration Academic Network, that connects Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, and Tunisia. The national partner of MADAR, that's Maghreb Action on Displacement and Rights Network. They also collaborate a lot with 3 UK universities, that's Kiel, Manchester, Edinburgh, and North African universities on research matters. And this is also Rabat, Algiers, Sousse, and also associated with NGOs in that region. He's a member of the North African Mixed Migration Task Force with the coordination with the UN Network Secretary on Migration. He's also a member of the Network of Scholars of Mixed Migration North Africa, American University of Cairo, and Center for Migration Refugee Studies. He's a member of the Steering Committee and member of the national partner of the Euro-Mediterranean Research Network on Migration and Euromedic. And recently, Professor has been working very closely with Tangaza, especially reflecting on COVID-19 and its effect on humanity. So welcome, Professor, to share your thoughts on human solidarity.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Reginald, you will present the second partner, or I have to speak now?
You can speak now. I'll introduce
okay.
the second partner
Okay.
when time. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Reginald. And it's, I think, the second time that we meet with our partner, my partner in Kenya, with Tangaza University, the Institute, Harmony Institute, and all the other partners from Kenyan universities and academic. And I'm really, it's a great pleasure for me to work with you and to collaborate and to cooperate about these shared issues, these topics, and about how humanity, how local communities, how human stakeholders, how states should be ready to respond to a lot of issues and concerns around and about migration issues, topics, and movement, mainly movements, migration movement between sub-Saharan Africa. I prefer, as I said it last time, to speak about Africa to
Uday, are we okay? Uday, did Professor disappear?
Yeah, Professor, I think because of his internet, his connection is lost.
Okay, we give him a few minutes. Do we? So we'll give Professor a few minutes to reconnect. Internet has a challenge.
Yeah, he's connected, sir, now.
Yeah, you're welcome, Professor. Perhaps maybe you could just turn off your video so that it doesn't go off again.
Sorry, I think that we was cut. I don't know. Perhaps it's from my side because the connection is not so good. So I'll try to go quickly in order to speak about the issues, the concern issues, and what we are sharing today about these topics. So I said that the key word is vulnerability, which form of vulnerability of migrants in North Africa and Tunisia, in the context of conflict and of crisis, climate change, and also about the lack of security in the Sahel region, which is the neighborhood of North Africa countries. And as I said, that the main form of vulnerability are risk and violence against migrants and refugees who are coming from Libya after having crossed the Saharan routes from the Sahel countries and more far, and Libya, as I said, is today one of the more risky countries because there is no state, there is no authorities, and the main actors are the criminal networks of trafficking and of smuggling against migrants and refugees. And because Libya, there is no authority and there is no possibility of responses by the state, the Libyan state, you have some NGOs who are working in Libya to try to protect migrants, but a lot of them come to Tunisia and flee to Tunisia because Tunisia is a safe country now for migrants who are in this situation. And the problem that Tunisia have big problem to success to receive and to respond to the needs of migrants. The first one is that there is no asylum law in Tunisia to protect refugees and asylum seekers. And there is no means, there is no structure, and it is the UNHCR office in Tunisia who is managing, who is studying the request of refugee status. This is one. So in this way, the only actors and the stakeholders who are trying to respond to the big needs of migrants are NGOs, national NGOs, or international NGOs, or also the international organizations such as IOM and UNHCR. But in this case, and if we take the case of the pandemic, the COVID-19, the migrants coming from Libya and the migrants coming who are staying in Tunisia since some years were exposed to a lot of risk and lack of service because migrants and refugees in Tunisia cannot have a formal contract. The Tunisian law about labor for foreigner is very hard, and they cannot have possibility to have a formal labor, a decent work. And in this case, one of the risks of these migrants is the informal work. That means there is no protection, social protection, and welfare protection for these migrants. And the second vulnerability of migrants is that they are exposed to the strategy and the work of criminal networks who are trying to push them to cross the Mediterranean with a lot of the cost of the travel is very high, and in this case, when the migrants and the asylum seekers who are coming to Tunisia to cross to Europe, they have to work, and they are exploited, and they are exposed to exploitation of work, or of course sexual violence in order to have money to pay the criminal networks. That's why I said that it is very important to work also with local communities. And I think the topic of our workshop about humanitarian solidarity I think that local communities demonstrated in the past in Tunisia and in North Africa that they can have a lot of possibility and opportunity to help migrants and mainly the vulnerable category such as women, minors, and migrants or refugees who were victim of smuggling and trafficking in Libya or on the routes when they crossed the Sahara and the other Sahel countries, or from the Horn of Africa to reach the North African coast and the North African countries. And that's why I said that local communities have to be supported to work with NGO, international NGOs and national NGOs in Algeria, in Morocco, in Tunisia, and in Libya also, Egypt also, of course, but Egypt is another way, other routes to migrants to go to Israel and to the other countries of the Gulf area. And I said about the North African countries, the local communities demonstrate that they can support them, and in 2011, when they were the what we call the Arabic uprising, before the arrival of international NGOs, of international communities, international organizations such as UNHCR and the OIM, the local community at the local level, they were mobilized to support and to give help to migrants for at least 2 weeks before the arrival of the UNHCR and of the national. And I think that we can build something with the church, with the mosque, with the religious stakeholder to give support and to support these migrants. And I think that about the church and the religious actors, I propose that to organize in the coming future a conference in order to meet between Christian and Catholic and Muslim actors, because what I observed in Tunisia and remarked in Tunisia, that the mosque and the Muslim actors are not so mobilized are not mobilized enough to support this action to help the migrants. And if I take there is no Muslim, there is no the equivalent of the Caritas in the mosques. You have, I mean, the caritative organization, they give help to local community, to Muslims, but not to foreigners who are coming in North Africa. And I think that we can work on an action or program to meet and to join religious actors, Muslim imams and Muslim mosque, to contribute to receive the foreigners who are coming in North Africa. This is one of my recommendation. The second one is about the role of municipality and local authority to work to increase the support and the means to help migrants and all persons and groups who are vulnerable, and mainly, of course, migrants and refugees and asylum seekers. And I am thinking that in Tunisia, in Morocco, and around the Mediterranean, there is a program which is called Migration City to City in the Mediterranean, and it's about building capacities of local communities, of municipality, to take in charge and to help and to follow the needs of migrants who are staying, who are working, who are arriving in the cities. And the cities, I think, should be supported and can be the main actors to reach the global goal on which we are working today. Of course, I think young and youth should be also principal and main actors, and we can work on a program to support and to improve the contribution and the participation of youth to support and to take in charge the needs of migrants, and mainly the vulnerable communities. And when you say about youth and young people, I'm thinking to students. For example, in Tunisia, in Tunisia and in North Africa, there is a lot of and a big community of students coming from sub-Sahara countries, and they are living, they are meeting their colleagues, their peers, Tunisian youth, Algerian and North African youth. And I think that in the framework of this Congress, of this conference, international conference about Fratelli Tutti, youth can be targeted as the main actors in order to help to reach this goal, to have support, to help and to have to respond to the needs of vulnerable category of migrants. I don't know if I have speak about the main topics, but we can continue to after to respond and to have answer about other topics if the participant of the followers can speak a question. I think there is another side or another level on which we can work in the framework of this this conference and of these initiative coming from the partner of the Kenyan partner and the international partner of this conference, is to work on how change the rules and the laws in every country in order to facilitate the integration and the responses to the needs of this migrant. I don't know, perhaps I am going out of the topic, but I am ready to continue and to give idea and answer to other question if there is after. Thank you very much, Dr. Reginald.
Thank you very much, Professor Hassan, all the way from Tunisia. I think you have triggered a very good discussion here. Human beings are migrants by nature. Some of them move because of turmoil from their countries, so they become refugees. So when they are moving across the continent, how should they be protected? How should they be supported to reach their dreams of life? But in crossing the desert and going towards Europe, which is normally the destination, they face a lot of challenges. They become victims of criminal activities, and some of them are very badly abused. So you have created an argument how we can create this international solidarity to protect vulnerable people, and especially refugees and migrants. And you have appealed to us as faith believers, the churches and the mosques, to help us forge this partnership where we can help to reach out people of all faith without choosing which side they belong. because our culture, human solidarity, is to work for humanity's sake. So thank you very much, Professor. And I'm sure there'll be very many questions that will come. And in the second part, we shall be able to engage you more. So I'd like to move to the second speaker, who is Dr. Emily Okuto. Dr. Emily Okuto holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Peace and Conflict Studies. She holds a Master's of Arts degree in Counseling Psychology from Kenyatta University and a Bachelor's of Education Arts in English in the same university. She has several years of teaching both at high school and level and institutions of higher learning. She holds memberships to several organizations, among them Forum for Women Educationists, FAWE, and One Nation Under God for Peace and Conflict Initiatives. She has successfully conducted consultancies for many local and international agencies and conducts trainings in the area of conflict management, governance, and peace building. She has many publications, especially in the area of peace and conflict, security issues, and governance. She has special interest in internally displaced persons, and especially refugees, violent extremism, internal security, and development of states. Currently, she's a full-time lecturer at African Nazarene University and also the chairperson of governance and peace security in the department. And we in Tangaza, we are very pleased to be associated with Professor because she also helps us here in Tangaza. So welcome, Professor, to share your reflections.
Thank you, Dr. Reginald, for that wonderful introduction. I also would like to thank the organizers of the conference for allowing me to also share with you during this conference. And I'm also thanking Professor Hassan, all the way from Tunisia, for touching on an area I love, the issues of migration. Indeed, what you are raising is of importance, especially when you look at those migrating across the borders amidst what we are going through during this pandemic. So I would like to share, Dr. Reginald, am I having rights to share?
Yes. Our technical team can allow you to share. Hudai, please let Professor share.
Still disabled?
Hudai, could you share? Could you allow Professor to share her screen?
Very nice to meet you, Dr. Okuto.
Yes, Prof.
And thank you very much for your nice words.
Okay. So I'm waiting, Dr. Reginald.
Yes, yes. I think Hudai should allow you to share. On my side, it's not.
It's done. It's done.
Okay, you can go ahead now. Go ahead. Yeah, it's coming. Yes, we can see it.
Is that sufficient? Are you able to see, or I need
Yes.
to make it bigger?
Maybe you could make a bit bigger.
Is it better?
That's better. Okay. Fine. I think it's okay. Could you do the, okay, that's good.
That's better.
Yes, that's better. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. What I want to share with you today is on vaccine nationalism amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. And a little background. We are all aware of what has been happening from 2019, late 2019 to date. In March 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a world pandemic. And what a number of people have contracted the virus. If you go by statistics, at some point, we had 500,000 people who had contracted the virus, according to World Health Organization in 2020. And if you were to look at 2021 statistics, they've surpassed that number almost 3 or 4 more times than it was earlier. And the pandemic continues to ravage the world. And from time to time, we are having different strains being reported. And you can imagine what is happening. Livelihoods are lost, lives are lost. The different countries are struggling with it economically, socially, politically, and people's health are affected. And you can imagine, as we look at Pope Francis through his letters, when he speaks of the dark clouds that cover the world and plunge the world into confusion, isolation, and desolation. So as I talk about the world being affected by this virus is affecting very many things. It is threatening globalization. And as Prof had said, we are told countries have closed their borders. They've suspended immigration. You can imagine the plight of the refugees. And this is pointing at something called economic nationalism, where governments are trying to protect their countries and they're urging their businesses and consumers to focus locally. So countries are now becoming more and more self-centered in whatever they are doing, even as they fight this pandemic. Our continent, Africa, has not been left behind in this suffering the effects of the COVID. We are told Africa has reported over 5 million COVID-19 cases. That is representing 2.9% of total cases globally, according to Africa CDC. So the effects that were being experienced in the Western countries are now slowly creeping into the continent and some other developing countries, as reported in the news. So the World Health Organization is working round the clock with global experts, governments, and partners to expand scientific knowledge on this new virus, to track the spread and virulence of the virus, and to provide advice to countries and individuals on measures to protect health and prevent the spread of this outbreak. But despite what the World Health Organization is doing, different countries, this virus remains a challenge to all nations of the world. And scholars, researchers, and different experts are saying to fight against COVID, the fight against COVID-19 cannot be won if different people are not brought on board. And we're talking about migrants, refugees, marginalized countries, poor countries. If they cannot access health care, then the fight against this virus cannot be won. So in as much as researchers are looking for vaccines, coming up with different vaccines, how the vaccines are being administered also matters. And the vaccines have proven to be very expensive. So poor countries cannot afford it. Very few countries can afford it, and that also brings that gap between the rich countries and the poor countries. The purchase of the vaccine is actually highlighting the gap. We are told that there's need for an international system to share the coronavirus vaccine. An international system to share the coronavirus vaccines was supposed to guarantee that low and middle income countries could get doses without being last in line and at the mercy of unreliable donations. What is happening right now is that the rich countries are getting the vaccine, hoarding, giving large number of doses to their populations, more or less going towards what the realists used to say. The realists were talking about states being powerful and being self-centered. It is coming out clearly in the administration of these vaccines, where states are hoarding vaccines, if I may use the word hoarding. They are acquiring the vaccines in large numbers, forgetting that there are other countries which are also in need of these vaccines. This is now leading to the emergence of a new concept known as vaccine nationalism. Vaccine nationalism. The World Health Organization is very much against this vaccine nationalism. And they are saying one of the drivers of COVID-19 pandemic is the lack of solidarity and sharing data, sharing information, sharing pathogens, sharing technology, and sharing resources. According to the World Health Organization, we can only address this fundamental weakness by having a commitment between nations to have a solid foundation. So even as we discuss in this conference, we can also reflect on that because it reflects what Pope Francis was saying about solidarity. It is being echoed here. We need that commitment to have a solid foundation. Let us share. Now, research has proved that actually to fight the pandemic, there's need to have vaccines. Individuals need to be vaccinated. One needs 2 vaccine doses, and that's the most effective way to ensure protection against the COVID-19. That does not mean that if you have the vaccines, you may not contract the virus, but at least it ensures some protection. But many countries have been unable to get adequate supply of the vaccines. So you can imagine you need 2, but you find that in most countries, they have not even seen where the vaccine is being given. Many can't afford it. So we focus on this concept, vaccine nationalism, and why it is harmful to us. Vaccine nationalism occurs when governments sign agreements with pharmaceutical manufacturers to supply their own populations with vaccines ahead of them becoming available for other countries. So this is an arrangement rich nations are engaging in. So they book the vaccines. So as the pharmaceutical manufacturers come up with the vaccines, they are already booked. So other nations can't actually get them. In other words, it can also be referred to as the unequal scramble for coronavirus vaccine. Not the way countries would scramble for Africa. Now we are having the unequal scramble for coronavirus vaccine. That is the vaccine nationalism. Now, even before many of the now approved COVID-19 vaccinations had completed their clinical trials, wealthy countries such as Britain, the US, Japan, and the European bloc had procured several million doses of the ones that seemed the most promising. Now, some of the popular vaccines included the Pfizer or Oxford, known as AstraZeneca. The countries had already booked these vaccines for their citizens or their nationalities. You can see the researchers spending time, and one of the manufacturers of the vaccines include the Serum Institute of India in Pune. They've done a lot of manufacturing. But again, later on you learn that with what the Serum Institute was doing, when the pandemic now hit India very badly, they stopped exporting this vaccine to other countries. So the countries have struck deals to buy more than 2 billion doses of coronavirus vaccines in a scramble that could leave limited supplies in the coming years. They have booked up to 2022. Now, by August 2020, the US alone had secured 800 million doses of at least 6 vaccines in development. The wide range, I've mentioned like 2, but there were like 6 different vaccines, which the United States had booked. And they still have an option of buying about 1 billion more for their country. Around that time, the United Kingdom was the world's highest per capita buyer, with 340 million purchased, around 5 doses for each citizen. The European nations, which are buying vaccines as a group, they went as a group, they have also locked hundreds of millions of doses of vaccines for themselves. And Japan has done the same. Where are the developing countries in all this? Now, there are arguments that vaccines should be equitably distributed across the world. Otherwise, the pandemic will persist. If there's an outbreak of a disease, for example, if you take the case of your family, and there's an outbreak of a disease in the neighborhood, and you treat your own children and you leave the children of the neighbors, when they play together, the children of the neighbors will infect your children. So you're doing zero work. Now, this is the case globally, is what we are seeing in the scramble for the vaccines. We are not going to get rid of the pandemic until we get rid of it everywhere. Meaning, there's need to prevent nationalism. And we go back to Pope Francis. He makes a link between human fraternity and social friendship. This is based on the conviction that God created all human beings equal in rights, duties, and dignity, and has called them to live together as brothers and sisters. So we need to follow the teachings of Francis to ensure human solidarity in the fight against COVID-19. Now, even as I talk about the vaccine nationalism, there's something being done, though not enough, because that nationalism amongst nations is still very persistent. But there's an international effort. This is in an organization called COVAX, which is run by the World Health Organization, spearheaded by the Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, and the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, a group launched in 2017 to develop vaccines to stop outbreaks. So COVAX is making an effort to acquire vaccines for low and middle income countries. But it is making an effort, but still it is not gaining traction because of the greed by other countries, if I may use that. The aim of COVAX is to help poor countries vaccinate their people. It's got a target. Its aim is to secure 2 billion vaccine doses. 1 billion are for 92 low and middle income countries and economies, which encompass half the world's population. And the vaccines will cost these regions little or nothing. The other billions are for up to 75 wealthier countries who will pay for their own vaccine. So that is an effort by COVAX. At least they are trying to make a change in the world. The experiment of trying to convince rich countries to join this movement is not bearing fruits. Many rich countries are promising to join. You know, they're already securing for their countries, but they are promising to join this group by signing these agreements, but their self-centeredness prevails. And so they're focusing more on their countries than on the low and middle income countries and economies. Some low and middle income countries have struck advance purchases deals for themselves. For example, Brazil and Indonesia, they have agreements to buy millions of doses of vaccines that are undergoing phase 3 trials in their countries. And we have 5 countries from Africa who are beneficiaries, like Sao Tome, Principe, Morocco, Kenya, Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Libya. They've been beneficiaries of these donations, but the stock is not enough. They have used more than 90% of the stock because they're relying on these donations, even though they are trying also to purchase for themselves, but they can't really manage to provide for their populations. As we were told by the World Health Organization, there's need for sharing. And COVAX is getting supplies from different institutes, like I'd mentioned, the India Serum Institute, and they are still not able to meet their target. Vaccine nationalism continues, and there's very little to prevent countries or governments demanding from it. So even India was supplying, at one point, India had to withdraw and now focus on its own country, especially when they were hit by a very deadly variant of the COVID. They stopped exporting and they focused on their own country. So when we talk about vaccine equity, it hasn't worked very well. Some 530,000 doses were sent to Britain, more than double the amount sent that month to the entire continent of Africa. So 530,000 doses to Britain. Countries that were supposed to give money and donations to COVAX were not giving as per what they had pledged. Instead, they would give some money and donations to COVAX, but also strike bilateral arrangements with other countries. So they are promising that they are giving some money, but they have not met their target. Some of these countries are still, again, getting vaccines from COVAX and taking to their country. For example, Britain. Britain was getting supplies from COVAX, despite it being among the countries that has reserved the most of the world's available vaccines. It is claimed that in 2020 alone, Britain had given more than 860 million to COVAX, but that is still a small percentage of what it had promised. And there are other countries that have followed suit. And so we talk about limited global supply. of the vaccine. We have countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia. They had promised to donate 1.4 million doses of vaccines. And they have already shipped out more than 74,000 doses they received COVAX. US never got any doses from COVAX. It is focusing on its own manufacturing, but also importing for itself. So those are countries that have benefited. Some are still waiting, like Venezuela, Haiti. In short, what I'm saying is that the rich countries are promising to give money so that they can have donations of vaccines sent to different countries, but they're not meeting the target, or they're not honoring their promises as expected. And this brings us to the concept known as geopolitics. So even as we talk of vaccine nationalism, there's a variable which is also underplay, and that is geopolitics. Now, countries are using this vaccine to try and regain credibility so that we have rich countries getting COVAX to distribute the vaccine, but they're also now doing it on their own to gain publicity and political clout. So they are trying to have those bilateral arrangements in the sharing of the vaccine, but they are underlying intentions. They want to pass a message. That is what we are talking about as geopolitics. For example, the US, the lawmakers argue that when they're donating the vaccines, the government should seize the opportunity to ensure diplomacy by seeking credit for the doses they have shipped. And they're saying a lot of doses should be taken to the Middle East, and on the vial of the vaccine, they should have the American flag on each vial. And the European Union's Foreign Policy Office, it's seeing Europe lagging behind in donations, especially in geopolitical terms. And it feels that if it's lagging behind, China will overtake them in terms of power. So it's like they are losing to China. So countries are exporting, but with those political, geopolitical considerations. And I've put some examples of countries which are doing that. China is leading the pack. And it is bringing up that aspect of which country is superior, because China is really doing it. And as they do it, already they have enough for themselves, but they're now donating to the struggling countries because they believe that it is good that every country should be vaccinated. So I've given different countries that have struggled to give donations, and each taking credit as they give donations to COVAX, they're also giving using those bilateral agreements. You can see Canada also leading in that. So Britain has delivered 4.7 million. There's that shortage still, 30 million pledged, not reaching the target. European Union, 7.1 million, not reaching the target. But the poor countries are struggling in all this. So what is the way forward? We are looking at internationalism and not nationalism. If the donors are not stepping forward, that's a quote by somebody. If the donors are not stepping forward, the people who continue to die are our people. That was a statement given by somebody called Tribe Masiiwa, the African Union specialist. If the donors are not stepping forward, So are we going just to rely on the donors? In conclusion, I would say that selfishness and greed for power among nations is stopping the fight against the spread of COVID-19 pandemic. Nations are focusing on themselves. The focus is more on geopolitics than on helping other nations. The impact of this pandemic is the premier global emergency and has peace and security implications, given its potential to degrade economies and undermine stability within states. So this situation is very delicate. It is too urgent just to be left to the pharmaceutical companies and the drive for profits and the drive for supremacy and the narrow nationalist impulses of few rich countries. So what should we do? Pope Francis invites us to see the reality of the light of the Word of God. The Pope proposes a mediation on some scriptural text. The main text is the parable of the Good Samaritan. There are some verses that support this. Where is your brother? Am I the keeper of my brother? Genesis 4:9. Did not he who made me in the womb also make him? And did he not the same fashion us in the womb? That is Job 31:15. Meaning, the Pope feels and teaches us that there's need for us to take care of each other and for us to ensure global solidarity of human race. We should practice internationalism and not nationalism. Pope Francis says that we should not lose hope. In all this that we are going through, hope speaks to us of something deeply rooted in every human heart, independently of our circumstances and historical conditioning. Hope speaks to us of a thirst, an aspiration, a longing for a life of fulfillment, a desire to achieve great things that fill our heart and lift our spirit to lofty realities like truth, goodness, and beauty, justice, and love. If all the countries could combine together internationally to share information, share technology and resources, we'll all make it together. Solidarity is the way to go. Internationalism is the only way out. And the Pope has many teachings that we can adopt to fight the pandemic using the encyclical letters titled Fratelli Tutti. Other than that, developing countries, including those from Africa, should increase their own vaccine manufacturing rather than rely on COVAX. The issue of partnership should be relaxed by those with the rights. The continent needs to rely on itself for its own solutions instead of relying on others. Last but not least, collaboration between governments and vaccine makers in order to have equitable access and affordable prices will help us to fight the pandemic. Solidarity is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emily Okuto, for helping us reflect on this vaccine nationalism. You helped us also to look at how the international community can forge a partnership of reaching out to the most vulnerable in society without looking at continents or where they belong to. And you have helped us also look at how World Health Organization is calling on each and every person to join hands and fight the virus, because we're all safe only when all of us are vaccinated. So this vaccine nationalism needs to be addressed and make sure that the rich countries do not dominate the vaccine distribution, that they think on each and every person. So therefore, you have also helped us to look at the future and avoid this geopolitics where some countries are using vaccine to dominate others. It's like the old politics of the Kwande periphery. The core gives you a carrot, and if you don't like it, they throw away the carrot. But this time you're saying, can these countries just say, we are helping you because we are all members of the one family, one human community? So internationalism is the way to go. Collaboration among nations is key to bring about this solidarity towards humanity. Thank you very much, Dr. Emily, for these very wise and encouraging words. So we'll open up the floor for more discussion, for more questions, and engage with the public, the global public in Asia, Africa, and America. So we welcome questions from the global fraternity. I think the first question that comes up is to Professor Hassan. We know that Libya has been the epicenter of receiving all refugees and migrants from the Horn of Africa and especially the south of the Sahara. And when they arrive there, very well-educated people have skills, they're turned into beggars, they're turned into slave pets. Or what has come out to try and address this issue from, let me say, the African perspective? What have you come across to help these refugees and migrants stranded in Libya, especially? Professor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. And it's, of course, related to the situation of Libya. Of course, Libya is a country till the 2011 was the biggest destination country, immigration destination country in Africa. And Republic of South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire became, after 2011, the biggest destination country. But before 2010, Libya was the biggest one, because in this period there were about 2 to 2.5 million of migrants in Libya, mainly from Sudan, from Egypt, from Chad, from North Africa countries, and also from some other countries. So Libya was an open door country to migrants because the alliance between Gaddafi and sub-Saharan countries, the Sahel countries. So that's why if we have to manage and to deal with the problem and the threats of against migrants in Libya, the work should be done between Libya and sub-Saharan countries, the Sahel country mainly, not with Europe, for example. And that's why we are calling that we should work on more cooperation and more comprehension and understanding of the Libyan problem to manage irregular migration on its soul. And Libya, as I said in my contribution, in my speech, is since 2011, there is no state, there is no authority. So the militias and armed groups are the main actors of managing, if I can say, migration on this in Libya. So the most urgent emergent solution is that Libya and the Sahel countries and sub-Saharan countries should work on how to organize the migrants to Libya from sub-Saharan countries in order to to reduce the vulnerability of migrants and asylum seekers and refugees. You know that there is a lot of migrants from Horn Africa, from Eritrea, from Ethiopia, Tigray, who are arriving to Libya. And who is receiving them? The armed group and the militias to push them to cross the Mediterranean. That's why I said that the slave market, the threats against migrants in Libya should be managed and administrated and served by the African countries, by Libya and sub-Saharan countries. And I think that the African Union is not taking enough responsibility and role to help Libya and the other country of origin of migrants to manage this issue and to, of course, reduce the threats and the risk for migrants on its soul.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Father Abraham.
Thank you, Dr. Reginald, my professor. My name is, as you heard, Abraham. I have 2 points. First one is confirming and thanking. Second one is a question. The first one to Dr. Hassan. Since I come from Ethiopia, Tigray region, as you were saying, the refugees are coming from Eritrea, Tigray. So we really thank you. This is humanity and solidarity. So you are the father and so many join you. We are grateful for that hospitality. Lives are saved because of your hospitality. Shukran jazilan. Allah yabarik fiik. Second, second to Dr. Couto, sorry, the names I'm not pronouncing well. And to both of you, my question is, what is the possibility of this pandemic finishing? And what are the conditions that the people should work? Doctor from Tanzania, anyway, the second doctor spoke very well forward from Tanzania. The way forward is the way of solidarity. I like it, and that really must be the only way. But do we have a light at the end of the tunnel, and how can we reach there? To both of you, I would appreciate. This is we are working as a small group, Kenya Hub or Africa Hub, on this area of coronavirus issue all this year. And this is our real fear and worries. We need to share with the people the aspirations, the hopes, if you can help us. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. I think we go to Dr. Emilio Couto first from Africa Nazarene University. Africa Nazarene. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you, Abraham. Now, I always believe in hope, just like Father Francis was saying, there's hope. When you talk of hope, you don't just sit back and wait and say there's hope. A lot has to be done. And it has been proven that when people are vaccinated, the chances of contacting the virus is lowered. And even if it attacks people, it is not as, it doesn't have those effects the way they would to somebody who is not vaccinated. So for me, I believe that if the rich countries would actually allow the, can I say, developing countries to also get these vaccines, and if possible, have the scientists from all over the world come together so that the production of the vaccines is multiplied and not just left for a few individual pharmaceutical companies to do it. If there could be that sharing of information on the vaccine so that there can be a mass production of it, then it means in every country, there would be a local branch of a pharmaceutical company producing the vaccine. In that way, everybody in the continent, different continents, from Western countries to Africa, would get their people vaccinated. And so it would be like you just wake up and there it is available at low costs that is affordable to everybody. And then World Health Organization could launch a massive campaign to have a massive campaign to sweep the COVID-19 pandemic out. With every country producing the vaccine, every individual would be vaccinated and get the right doses. There would be hope to have it out. So I believe that with that cooperation amongst countries, there'll be that sharing of information and technology, and we will have the pandemic cleared. A mindset of countries to stop being nationalistic and focus on the outside. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okuto, for that input. Professor Hassan, would you like to go?
Yes, just a short comment. I totally agree with what is said by Dr. Emily Okuto and about the response.
Professor, I think your line is stuck, is hanging. Professor Hassan?
Maybe I can ask Dr. Emily Okuto until our professor comes back.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes, go ahead.
first of all, thank you for the beautiful input. Really, a little bit I was out, I couldn't enter, then I contact, but the parts I followed, really wonderful, and you are in it. You know the matter, what's going on. Thank you. We have a short, a small kind of group or organization under Tangaza, of which Dr. Reginald and I are the members, and it's called the Interfaith, Inter-Universities and Interfaith Africa Forum. We have been working on this area. So we are very happy to be part of you, and we would welcome us as a member. Even people like you can be, we can be together to work further, because as you brought it, the collaboration is still much in need, and the corona is here to remain for a couple of years, it seems. I think we need to work together. So I would like to invite you as the member of this organization to help us, being part of us. Thank you. And we will be your disciples.
Thank you.
Can I respond first?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I am not an outsider from Tangaza. I do come to Tangaza, and I have some classes there. I would be happy to join you and not as the one with the knowledge, but part of the group that is searching for an answer and trying to help to come up with solutions. So I'm happy for that invite, and I would gladly join you as we try to
Thank you. Thank you. We will put you in our number from today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome back, Professor Hassan. I know you're logged out. So we have another 3 minutes and then we wind up. So go ahead, you can share your...
Yes, just to say and to continue that, of course, with the proposal of Dr. Ibrahim, of course, we are ready to work and to have more meetings, perhaps to improve and to advance in possible initiative and program in order that we have a strong link, a strong framework to work together, I mean, towards Sahara, and in order that we advance in this way. And just when I was cutted, I said that what I remark in all North African countries, that there is more shared solidarity between local communities, Tunisian societies, and migrants. Why? Because COVID-19 demonstrates that it is the same risk, the same threat for everybody. And the local communities where you have sometimes, a lot of times, racism, xenophobia, they understood that this crisis is, everybody is the victim of the crisis. And this crisis improve the solidarity and the visibility and the trust between local communities and migrants coming from Syria, coming from Libya, or coming from sub-Saharan countries. So I think that perhaps one of the benefits of this crisis that it improved the trust between local community, national community, and migrants and vulnerable migrants. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Dr. Okuto, as you're coming to the close, there was this question about, okay, is vaccine sustainability where universities in Africa need to seek collaboration with their counterparts in the West so that there is this sustainability locally of research, improvement, and developing their own vaccine. What would you say that a part of your closing remarks, please?
Okay, Dr. Reginald, I didn't get your question properly.
Okay.
Was it a question or you just wanted me to make a remark?
As you're making a remark, there was just an input that when we're talking about vaccine sustainability, okay, so we're getting donations, but could universities in Africa take this challenge and collaborate with their counterparts in the West and become the vanguard of developing vaccines for their own people?
Exactly. That is what I was driving at. I was saying that for how long are we going to rely on donations? As for us to have that sustainability, there's need for local researchers in different countries to partner with researchers who have made a headway in research to develop the vaccines. If that partnership and collaboration can be there, then vaccines will be locally available and we will be able to fight this pandemic the way they did with diseases like smallpox and polio. You know, it was that collaboration where that the universities and researchers partnered. So this is a wake-up call for our universities that there's still a gap in research and give a lot of focus in scientific technology to come up with vaccines locally. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Allow me to thank our panelists, Professor Hassan Boubakri from Tunisia, Professor Emily Okuto from Nazarene University, for sharing with us on the topic of the day that was looking at building bridges for human solidarity in the light of Pope Francis' encyclical letter, Fratelli Tutti. As we continue with this conference, we urge the human fraternity to work together in fighting the coronavirus. So I thank you very much, our panelists. Thank you very much, viewers, wherever you are in the world, for being part of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.